4 days before my wedding, I climbed the stairs to my fiancé's bachelor party to drop off his coat, and overheard him laughing with his friends about the woman carrying his baby. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I stood frozen behind a column while his mistress walked into his arms, and by the time I walked back down those stairs, I had already decided exactly how this story was going to end. My name is Claire Whitfield. This is what happened 4 days before I was supposed to marry the love of my life. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Chicago. That night, snow was falling hard over the city, and I stood by our apartment window holding my fiancé Marcus's wool coat, still smelling of his cologne. His driver, Tony, had worked for him for years. Loyal, quiet, practically family. "It's freezing out there," I told him on the phone. "Could you bring this coat to Marcus at the bar?" Tony hesitated. "It's still early, Miss Whitfield. Why don't you bring it yourself?" "He'd be thrilled to see you," I agreed, and rode with him through the snow-blurred city lights, only planning to drop the coat off, say hello, and leave. Marcus and I had been together since college, 11 years. We'd built our tech consulting company from a basement apartment with no heat, sharing blankets on rainy nights when the floor flooded. I once told him, half joking during our hardest year, "If you ever cheat on me, I'll take everything and disappear." He held my hand and said, "I swear, Claire, I'll never betray you. If I do, I'll lose everything. The money, my name, and you." I believed him completely for 11 years. That night, as I reached for the door of the private room, I heard his friend Derek's voice through the glass. 2 weeks till the wedding, and Vanessa's pregnant. How are you going to juggle both? If you've ever had the ground disappear beneath you in the space of one single sentence, stay with me and please hit that subscribe button because I need you to see how this story ends. I watched through the fogged glass as Marcus raised his glass, smiling. "Feels pretty great, actually." Laughter erupted around the table. "That's Marcus. Built an empire, keeps Claire happy, and still has fun on the side." Then heels clicked down the hallway. I ducked behind a column as Vanessa Cole walked past me and straight into Marcus's arms. Vanessa, the junior associate I had personally mentored, whose tuition I'd helped cover, who I'd brought into our company myself. His hand rested on her stomach, natural, practiced, like he'd done it 100 times. "Don't smoke," he reminded her gently. "Vanessa's pregnant." Cheers rang out around the table. I could barely breathe. I'd heard those exact words from his friends a dozen times over the years, at every event. "Claire's so lucky. Marcus treats her like a queen." And every time, he'd pull me close and say, "I'm the lucky one." I'd believed every word. Then Vanessa said something that split me open. "Too bad I met you too late. If I'd met you a few years earlier, maybe I'd be the bride in 2 weeks, right, Marcus?" The room went quiet. Marcus laughed, cold. "To marry a CEO, you've got to meet him when he's still broke. Claire's been with me since I had nothing. What do you have to compare?" Then, low, to Vanessa, "Just focus on the baby. Don't dream too much. And don't you dare say a word to Claire." That single sentence, no one tells Claire, shattered 11 years of promises in half a second, and I hadn't even opened the door yet. I staggered down the stairs, nausea rising, snow swirling outside the windows. I remembered every promise Marcus had ever made me, that we'd grow old together, that he'd throw the wedding of the century so the world would witness our love. All of it swept away by the sight of him kissing another woman. I collapsed on the frozen steps outside. Tony rushed over, alarm on his face. "Miss Whitfield, are you all right?" I looked up at him and understood, instantly, why he'd insisted I bring the coat myself. "How long have they been together, Tony?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. I grew up in a small town in rural Illinois where my parents favored my younger brother in every way that mattered. When I told them I wanted to go to college, they locked me in my room. I climbed out the window that night with a backpack and some savings, and Marcus was waiting at the gate to help me start over in Chicago. I even got into Yale and gave it up for him. For the startup dream, he sold me over gas station coffee. My favorite professor told me, coldly, "If you give up Yale for a man, don't regret it later." I promised myself I never would. We built the company from nothing together. I did the accounting, the scheduling, the coffee runs. When it finally succeeded, I brought Vanessa in on a scholarship program, gave her a job, gave her a chance. That night, Marcus came home late with a small gift box. "Sorry. The guys kept me there," he said, guilt barely masked under exhaustion. He handed me a cupcake box. I flipped it over. The receipt showed 2 purchased. Only one was inside, with a bite already missing and a smudge of orange lipstick on the frosting. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "That shade looks familiar. I gave that lipstick to Vanessa myself," and watched him decide, in real time, to lie to my face instead of telling me the truth. Marcus swore he'd never betray me. I let out a soft laugh, so quiet it sounded like relief. Inside, I was already frozen solid. He'd had the chance to be honest. He chose to lie. That was on him now. That night, I woke to find him slipping onto the balcony with his phone, whispering angrily into it. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. The next morning, I sat across from Margaret Bennett, one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in the city. "We need proof of the affair," she said. "That's how you protect yourself and secure the settlement you deserve." "I don't want to drag this out," I told her, my voice steadier than I felt. "I have enough assets to live comfortably on my own. In 2 weeks, I'll be moving. Before that, I want to liquidate everything in my name." She raised an eyebrow, impressed. "I'll have the settlement ready in 3 days, along with the infidelity documentation." As I gathered my things, my phone buzzed. An Instagram message from Vanessa herself. A photo of her pregnant belly, Marcus kissing it, captioned, "Sister Claire, I know you saw us. This baby is his. We've been together over a year. Everyone knows about me except you." My hands shook. 3 years earlier, Marcus had recklessly raced a business partner down an icy mountain road against my pleading. The car went into a frozen lake. I pulled him out myself and lost the pregnancy I'd been carrying at the time in the process. He held me afterward and swore, "We don't need children. Having you is enough." Reading Vanessa's message, I understood something with total clarity. He hadn't just broken a promise. He'd handed my most painful memory to another woman like a party favor. And I had exactly 2 weeks left to make sure he understood the cost of that. I didn't confront him. I got quieter. I asked him to sign a prenuptial agreement, framing it as my own insecurity about the wedding. He signed it without reading it closely, relieved I'd never actually looked at his phone. In it, I kept the cash, the real estate, the investments. He kept the company's shares, the thing he thought mattered most. Over the following days, I sold every property in my name, hired movers, liquidated every asset I could reach. In my office, I burned an old photo album. College years, the flooded basement apartment, every promise we'd ever made each other, and felt nothing but freedom in the ashes. The day before the wedding, Marcus came home to find our apartment completely empty. "Did we get robbed?" he asked, panicked. "We're getting married soon," I said calmly. I cleared out the old stuff. He believed me completely. On our wedding day, I sat in the bridal suite while my phone buzzed with another smug message from Vanessa. I turned to Margaret. "What comes next? I leave to you." She nodded once. "Everything's ready." The wedding planner rushed in to help me into my dress. I didn't walk toward the altar. I turned down a side hallway, took the service elevator to the lowest floor of the hotel, pulled the SIM card from my phone, and dropped it into a steel trash bin. The click echoed like a full stop on 11 years. Outside, the New York, Chicago, Winter wind hit my face as I got in a car headed straight for O'Hare, while inside that ballroom, on the massive screen meant for our wedding video, Margaret Bennett was quietly loading every piece of evidence I'd collected instead. Months later, sitting under the arches of an old European cathedral, lost in a sketchbook, I got a call from Margaret. After you left, we played the infidelity evidence on the big screen instead of the wedding video. The press ate it alive. I laughed for what felt like the first time in months. "Are you doing okay?" she asked. I looked out at the water in front of me, sunlight scattering across the waves. "Better than ever," I told her. "I never knew the world could be this beautiful." She told me Marcus had been struck by a car rushing to the airport afterward, his leg broken. His company was collapsing under the public scandal, their IPO dead. I felt nothing but a quiet, distant sadness for the man I used to love. My mother called, furious that I'd humiliated Marcus by leaving. Not one question about how I was doing. "Men stray sometimes, Claire," she said. "You need to learn to forgive." I hung up and deleted her number that same night. I understood, finally, that she had only ever loved the idea of a perfect son-in-law. Never me. I flew home once more, only for his mother, who begged me through tears to convince him to get medical help in the storm. I did. Not for him, but for her, because she'd always treated me kinder than my own parents ever had. At the hospital, Marcus grabbed my sleeve. "I'm sorry, Claire." I shook his hand off and walked away without looking back. At the airport, my old professor was there, waiting to see me off, in a wheelchair beside his wife. "I heard you were flying today," he said gently. I finally let myself cry. Not from grief, but relief. "Winter is past," he told me softly, "and the spring breeze makes the eyes sting. Here's what I learned from all of it. The people who beg you to forgive betrayal are rarely the ones who had to live through it. Real strength isn't loud revenge. It's quietly protecting what's yours before anyone even realizes you know the truth. And sometimes walking away in silence says more than any scene you could ever make. If this story moved you even a little, I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place, and let me know what city or state you're watching from. If you want more real stories like this every single week, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It genuinely means the world to this channel, and I read every comment you leave. Until next time, every winter passes, and spring always comes again.